So hello everybody, it's Mandy here and I've got lovely Tamara. So I'm a parent carer myself of a little girl with quite complex needs, and Tamara's come to join us to talk a bit about her family and a bit about, now I hope I get it right, ARFID. ARFID.
ARFID, yeah.
ARFID.
Perfect.
So would you like to introduce yourselves, Tamara?
Yes. Thank you for having me on, Mandy. It's a privilege to be on one of your recordings. My name's Tamara. I'm a parent carer for my son Samson. Mainly, I say, but also really my daughter over the last year. Things have come up with her as well, but that's a story for another day. So my son Samson, love him to bits. He's very vocal. He's 8 years old, just turned 8 years old. He likes to remind everybody of the fact that he's just turned 8 years old. Very cute. And he is diagnosed with a few different conditions. So from around the age of just before his 4th birthday, he was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And we also noticed the way that he was walking. He was tiptoeing. He had a slight in-turn of his feet. And he couldn't walk as far as Ariella ever could. And he would start complaining or wanting to be picked up. So he has hypermobility and in-toeing gait diagnosed as well. Along with this, over the last few months, amazingly, we have also been able to source through a trial, really more than anything, in Brecon, a doctor who specialises in eating disorders and other conditions like autism as well. And ARFID was something that kind of popped up over the last year. I noticed things being said on Facebook. There was a programme about it on TV. And for all these years, I always believed that my son's restrictive eating and selective eating, and the fact that he would always control how much he ate, what he ate, where he ate, when he ate, was just down to his autism. And we thought that obviously with regards to autism, there are some ways that they kind of control their behavior and what they like doing, and it can be quite rigid sometimes. So we just thought that that was just part of his autism. But I do a lot of research, maybe sometimes too much, too late at night, and I can't let things go, as any parent I'm sure here is the same. So I was researching, and suddenly over the last, I think, year and a half, I came across this little known condition called avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, which is ARFID. And of course, as soon as I found that condition, I thought, right, well, we need to find a way to be able to diagnose my son. Realised through various support groups on Facebook that actually it's very difficult to find a specialist who does diagnose this condition. But I'm a bit like a dog with a bone, and I don't let things go very easily. So managed to eventually find someone who made a little comment on someone's post, and they said that they had just been referred in Powys to this lady. So I spoke to our son's paediatrician, and asked for them to refer to, because I found out the name of who that lady was, and that was Dr. Granger, and asked for our paediatrician to refer our son onto Dr. Granger. And yeah, they're an amazing team. I must say, probably one of the best we've ever had support from. I was incredibly busy at the time that we pushed for this referral, and they didn't let go. They kept calling me, and eventually, pinned me down for a date. And yeah, so the beginning of this year, he was diagnosed officially with ARFID, and I can't tell you what a relief it was just to have recognition really for the condition that can be really challenging. And how we kind of, I suppose, when we first realised that it was a thing was when Samson was around just after a year old, maybe a year and a half. He'd already been eating as any other child would, and it had developed. And he was starting to eat solids and he wasn't picky at all. And then suddenly he became ill. I won't go into all the details, but he became ill. It caused sores in his mouth, and then he just dropped his food. He just wouldn't eat anything. He would barely drink. And then once, he got over the illness and he was recovered, that remained, and he would just eat 1 or 2 or 3 different things. And that went on for so long, and it was really stressful because every mealtime I would make him a meal and he would just scream and have huge meltdowns. And that's when we realized that there was more going on, really. And that was around the time that we started to, well, before that, we already started to pick up the fact that he was potentially on the autism spectrum as well. So this was one of those areas that we thought, okay, this is, the alarm bells are ringing. This is also another factor. Things that I've worked with a lot of people on the spectrum over the years, and these are one of the conditions that I've known a lot of people struggle with. So that was kind of what prompted really us to push for a diagnosis for autism, and then now we are here with a diagnosis for ARFID too. So there are obviously there are children out there that don't necessarily need to be on the autism spectrum to have ARFID. It's a standalone condition. And I think that's really important for people to understand as well. And so I worked with Dr. ARFID and begged her if she would provide this training session. Well, she says it's not a training session. She just wants to call it an introduction to ARFID. And it's based on the work of Rachel Bryant-Waugh, if I'm saying it correctly, hopefully. So she wants to just provide an introduction to ARFID to parents, carers, professionals, and individuals, anybody who's interested in learning more, really.
That's incredible. So what are the sort of signs or that made ARFID? If someone sort of think, oh, I think my child might have that. What are some of the things that are the sort of like traits as such? If that's a way, what makes ARFID? Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. So for us, obviously, we realised that once he got over his illness, that this selective eating just wasn't going away. And I spoke to my health visitor about it because I was really concerned at the time. I was worried that he was losing weight, and obviously the nutrition that you can get from vegetables and fruit that he wasn't, getting. So she said to us, don't worry, when he gets hungry, he will eat. And it was the worst advice, in all honesty. And it was, in my heart, I just knew that wasn't the case. I knew there was more to it, because the typical traits of ARFID are that you have a select set of foods that the child or the young person or the adult will only eat. That select set of foods can change. So with Samson, for example, every time there is a change in his life, so it could be an illness, it could be that we're going on holiday, or some sort of change in his routine that's upsetting him or making him a little bit anxious, could cause him to drop some of those foods. And then for a few weeks, he's actually not eating very much at all. And then suddenly he might start picking up new foods. And that seems to be his pattern. So for a very long time after he was ill, when he was around, I think it was 1.5, he would only eat toast, spaghetti hoops. He would eat bananas and he would eat strawberries. He would drink orange juice and milk at night. But that was it. But the way that the food was presented also had to be done in a very set way. So, for example, the banana, you couldn't cut it up. You had to give it to him as it was, peeled. It couldn't be mushy at all. It also couldn't be green. So it had to be in between. It had to be a ripe banana, but that it didn't taste raw and it didn't taste too mushy, which is very difficult. So when you're out shopping and you're choosing at the shops what you're buying, it's fine. But if you've got shopping being delivered, and only 5 of the items out of the 10 that you've bought are any good, it just becomes a bit of a challenge.
And then your banana's got to last, isn't it? So it's almost like you've got to go shopping more often to have it exactly
Oh,
right.
absolutely. And the strawberries, of course, only last, 2 days. And we'd have to buy boxes and boxes of them because he would go through them like nobody's business, because he was making up for the fact that he wasn't eating a normal meal. So from that age and up until today, he's 8 years old now, he hasn't eaten a warm meal in all that time. So when we sit down and eat our warm meal, I have to ask him if he wants to have anything to eat, because if I don't ask him, he can get very stressed and anxious and start screaming. So then I have to basically provide him whatever it is that he wants to eat at that moment in time. And so now he went for a whole huge long period where he was literally just eating salt and vinegar Walker's crisps and bananas and strawberries. And when we went on holiday, this was before lockdown in Holland, I had to literally pack a whole suitcase full of his food because they didn't have salt and vinegar Walker's crisps in Holland. Obviously you can't pack strawberries or bananas because by the time you get there they go off.
Right.
But when we were in Holland, I was hoping, okay, well, we can buy strawberries and bananas there, it'll be fine. Yeah, I kind of learned a big lesson from that. And what happened was the bananas didn't taste like the British bananas. The strawberries definitely didn't taste like British strawberries, because British strawberries are just the best. They're huge, they're juicy, and they're crunchy. And the ones from Holland were tiny and they were squishy. So there was no chance. Literally all he ate for 2 weeks was crisps and milk. And maybe a bit of orange juice. I think that was it. So that
was
so
hard, isn't it? And coming back to the conversation that you were saying about it, if they're hungry, they will eat.
Yeah.
So that kind of resonated a bit with me, because it's like, I don't know about you, but I felt like a bad mum with my daughter.
Yeah.
So my daughter's tube fed, maybe for different reasons, maybe for the same. I don't know. She can't communicate with us very well, but my daughter would rather not. Well, they don't know at that age, do they? But she would rather wilt away, and she was just so averse to food that she was just wilting away, and then there was nothing I could do. I couldn't get anything in her. Sometimes she'd try things and then it would make her poorly, and a bit like you said, then it made her feel not very well. She didn't want to eat it, and it's like, as a parent, you think all I want to do is feed my child, such a basic thing. And I don't know, myself, I felt a lot of guilt around that. A lot of guilt.
Huge.
And it's through no fault of not wanting to try.
Yeah.
We tried really hard to get her to eat.
Yeah, I bet. And the thing is, the advice that these professionals provide us, of course, comes from a place of some sort of experience, but it's often experience with mainstream children. And our kids just aren't mainstream. They're special, they're amazing, they've got so much to give the world. But on the other hand, it is tough. And what you need in those circumstances is to be surrounded by special needs parents who get it, who understand and don't make you feel guilty, and who lift you up and say, do you know what, you're doing the right thing. Your child's amazing and they're doing fine. Don't worry about it. They'll be okay. Because that's the thing. For a long time, we were so, I would still be presenting him with the meals that we were eating at the table, just in the hope that maybe one day he would turn around and go, do you know what? Yeah, I'll eat that today. And obviously that wasn't going to happen. But you try.
You keep trying. Yeah, we're similar with Polly now. So Polly's been not very well and been tube fed pretty much whole of her life. And we have tried lots of different things. I won't go into it because it's all a bit complicated.
Yeah.
But we're now at the stage now where she's kind of well enough that at school now, they're doing little tastes on her lips. So we're finally just starting to give her little tastes. Yeah, so she's been doing that for the last couple of weeks. So that's, I don't know, it's not a big thing for some people, but it's huge for us. It's like, oh, she's interested. It's like, we're trying, we're getting there. It's like, yay, have a party, and it's only a taste, but it's one step closer, So, to always have that hope and why not, isn't it? Just keep trying. That's all you can do.
So for us at the time, once he'd got over the illness, Samson wasn't eating a lot. And so obviously when I was presenting him at the time, I don't do that anymore because it's just pointless. I don't make the extra meal. It actually causes him anxiety and stress to be presented with something that he can't tolerate. So that stopped after about a month and a half of me trying. And some people would probably think, maybe you didn't try long enough. But I know that that was causing him stress and anxiety and actually was stopping him eating. And so in the end, when he started picking up something and eating it, it was like, way, you know, this was amazing. But obviously we had to keep calm. We were just like, oh, good boy, you know, because if you overdo it, then he might stop eating as well.
Well, and with autism as well, isn't it? You know, sometimes it can be overwhelming, them reactions, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, if you react like that, it's so my daughter sometimes gets us overwhelmed with like excitement sometimes. So it's like Christmas, we have to play Christmas down because else, you know, she has a meltdown because she can't cope with it, you know.
Yeah. So it's the same with the food with Samson. So when we would go to, which we don't do very often, but at the time that that was happening with Samson, we had a family gathering. And so one of the things that causes him anxiety is to sit at the table with other people. So when it's just us, his family, his dad, his sister and myself, it's okay. But even then, sometimes he'll choose not to eat at the table. And that can be because it's not a lot of the time, actually, it's because he doesn't like people looking at him whilst he's eating. So that's why he takes himself to another room, sits on the sofa or whatever and eats there. In a conventional family, that's not normal, you know, and people would think that I'm being a lazy parent. And I think a lot of thoughts out there are slowly changing, which is great because you've got things like social media, which present, you know, different types of parenting styles. And so I hope that people are much more understanding these days. And actually, I don't even bat an eyelid. If someone comes over to my house and my son's eating on the sofa, I don't even think about it because it's so normal for us. But I can imagine for them, it's like, okay, shouldn't he be sitting at the table eating a meal or whatever? And, you know, when we're at the meal. So when we had a family event, sorry, I do ramble and go off into different tangents.
It's lovely. It's lovely. There's so much here. You've got so much.
But when we had the family event, it was really stressful. And there were times where, you know, we would have to walk off with him from any kind of dinner table and just keep him calm, really, in another room. And at the time, nobody understood. Nobody realised that he was potentially getting a diagnosis for autism. And people would say things like, oh, don't worry, it'll be fine. You know, eventually everything will come together. He's still young. And I could see all the signs and it just wasn't helpful at the time, you know, because what you want is just somebody to give you a hug, really, or to just leave you alone.
Yeah, it's hard when people say, I think they do it because they don't know what to say and they want to make you feel better. And I don't know about yourself. I just, like you said, it's sometimes, yes, we understand. Well, we don't understand, but we totally hear what you're saying. And like you said, a big hug, because sometimes it feels like people are playing it down, and then it makes me feel guilty then for feeling like that, and you then close off. But what is amazing, what you said is,
I feel like I'm not allowed to put a label on my child because it's a label, and that's not what I'm doing. I'm recognizing their needs, and their needs, then you can't
support they need.
Support them. And what I wanted was the support right from the start. I didn't want it to be like 10 years down the line and then we were going to start the support, because then, you know, he would be a highly anxious child by then, and completely misunderstood. So I think it's important that people understand, you know, at the end of the day, as a parent, you know what your child needs and you know where they're at. So, and
I love what you said about, you know, I don't think just getting together with other people that just understand, like, the special needs community is so incredible, because like the support that you get, there's no judgment. So, oh yes, we've had that, or yes, you could try that, or, you know, just the understanding that it's just how it is, and it's okay, and it's your normal.
Yeah. And if your child's having a huge meltdown in the corner or whatever,
Yeah.
you look at
Yeah.
each other and you understand and recognize that. It's not, oh, is
Yeah.
everything okay? It's like, yeah, he'll be fine in 5 minutes, you know, but it's not, we don't even ask because we understand.
Yeah.
We get it. So yeah, but I just think it's really important with ARFID, with avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, that it's recognised, because it's not just a child who's being fussy. It's not a child who's being picky or controlling the parents. It's actually a need, a condition, and they can't help it. And they're often it's to do with the senses, that they might be overwhelmed or underwhelmed, and understanding that makes a huge difference for that child in the long run, because if we ignore it and we force them to eat the things that they are really struggling with, then it will only cause trauma, and cause potentially the eating disorders you don't want them to have when they're older.
Fantastic. Oh, it's such an amazing topic. I've so enjoyed this, Tamara. So you said that there's you've got a workshop coming on. How do people know about that? Should we drop it in the link above here when we put the video out?
That'd be amazing.
And what about if anyone wants to get in contact with you? Is there how can they get in contact with you if they perhaps, is there anything that you're doing that, or that they get in contact with you if their child is they feel that their child is? Or
at the moment I don't work because of the commitments with my children. They do take, you know, I have to give my all to my children at the moment, but I'm so keen for other families to just understand the system, how to navigate it, you know, if they don't feel like they're getting anywhere with certain areas, and to just provide that kind of support if anybody wants it. I am a peer supporter working voluntarily for Credit at the moment, and I specifically provide peer support for families, parents, carers of children who have neurodiversity. I'd say it generally, because autism is quite specific, so there's a whole spectrum of needs and conditions under the umbrella of neurodiversity. So yes, you can
maybe contact Credit, maybe, or
you can contact through Credit helpline, or my email address, which is tamara@credit.cymru. You're more than welcome to contact me in any way possible, to be honest.
Oh, so I can hear the passion coming through, and how you really want to support others, and you know, and you know, your time restricted yourself as being a parent carer is, you know, and so thank you so much for taking the time to come on and speak to us about this amazing is it diagnosis,
Condition. Yeah,
condition.
It's actually a disorder, but I don't like to call it that, because it just, you have to officially say disorder, because otherwise it doesn't get recognised as a need to treat. But it's ARFID.
I think you're going to help so many people. So, well, just winding it down. Now, is there any lasting things that you would just like to say just before we go?
Just that, if you can't come along to the session next week, don't worry. Quite a number of people have already booked on, which is fantastic, and it's really nice to see parents and professionals. And we wanted to open it up to professionals as well, just to spread awareness. Like, for example, when I had contact with that health visitor, if she'd have just understood the condition, maybe the advice would have been very different. And don't worry if you can't come along next Thursday, because it will be recorded, so you can catch up. And like I said, if you need any advice, any kind of contact details or anything, you can contact Credit or myself at any time.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. And
thank you.
Hopefully we'll do it again.
Yay!
Yay! So bye for now.
Take care. Bye.